The night before the wedding, my girlfriend passionately made out with her first love at the bachelorette party she organized. The two of them felt that wasn't exciting enough, so they recorded a video and posted it on WeChat Moments. Friends and relatives were instantly in an uproar. By the time I found out the next day, the comments had already piled up to 99 plus. My girlfriend pretended to be embarrassed. I drank too much last night, but since things have already turned out this way, why not just go with the flow and let him marry me in your place? After all, we already registered our marriage a long time ago. One wedding ceremony more or less doesn't really matter. The hotel staff standing nearby were completely stunned, convinced that I would definitely lose my temper, but I smiled and nodded, agreeing to what she said. My girlfriend was very pleased with herself, saying that I had finally learned my lesson this time and hadn't made a fuss over her first love. But she seemed to have forgotten that the marriage certificate she and I got back then was fake. Chapter 1. After agreeing to my girlfriend Juliet's request, she immediately told me to take off the wedding suit. The hotel staff also replaced the wedding poster that had originally belonged to me with one of her and Matthew. Alexander. Matthew's parents have been pressuring him to get married urgently. Once we get through them, I'll make it up to you with a wedding even grander than this one. Okay. I nodded, my eyes drifting to the red marks on her neck. Ignoring the strange looks from the people around me, I took off the wedding suit and quietly sat down at the table reserved for the bride's relatives. I had been busy with this wedding for a long time, pouring in a great deal of effort and energy. Both the hotel and the banquet were arranged to the highest standard, yet I never imagined it would all end up becoming someone else's dowry. I forced a bitter smile and swallowed a glass of bitter wine, then turned my gaze toward the stage. Juliet had put on a pure white wedding dress, tears glistening in her eyes. Amid the crowd's cheers, she shared a passionate kiss with Matthew. Suddenly, the bitter wine in my mouth didn't taste bitter anymore. Maybe I had gone numb. All these years, I had always known that Juliet had a first love she could never forget. Back then, I argued with her, fought with her, made scenes, yet it was all useless. Every time, Juliet would promise that she would never contact Matthew again, only to turn around and entangle herself with him all over. Gradually, at some point I couldn't even tell when, I became numb myself. I thought that once we got married, she would finally settle down, but unfortunately, she gave even this wedding, one I had begged for over a long period of time, to someone else. After draining the last sip of bitter wine, I left the wedding venue before the toasting ceremony began. Soon, Juliet called. Alexander, the toasting hasn't even started yet. Why did you leave? Matthew even said he wanted to have a few drinks with you to thank you. Thank me? I think he just wanted to mock me. She couldn't possibly not know that Matthew and I didn't get along. It was just that she cared more about Matthew, so she repeatedly indulged his provocations toward me. I have something to take care of, so I left first, I said. What could you possibly have to do? Are you angry because of the wedding? I smiled lightly and replied casually, yeah, I'm angry. Juliet's voice instantly turned cold. What's wrong with you now? A grown man who spends all day being jealous and petty. Learn from Matthew, how generous he is. He knows I'm your wife, yet he's still willing to risk being laughed at by others to hold a wedding with me. So it was like this again. He was the one being laughed at. The real joke was clearly me. Just as I was about to speak, I heard Matthew's smug voice. Juliet, this is what I should do. I should be thanking you instead, for agreeing without hesitation to have a wedding with me after you found out my parents were urging me to marry. Oh, and thanks as well to my good brother Alexander for working so hard on our wedding for so long. Hearing this, I immediately clenched the phone in my hand. Juliet's favoritism was something I had long been painfully aware of. At the law firm, she demanded that I address her by her professional title at work. Yet she allowed Matthew to affectionately call her Juliet, baby, in front of all our colleagues. 3 months ago, just because of a single remark from Matthew, she handed over a case I had painstakingly worked on, one that was about to be completed after I had gathered all the key evidence, to him. But Matthew was utterly incompetent. Even with evidence that guaranteed a win, he still managed to lose the upper hand. Juliet immediately dumped the mess back onto me. Alexander, you know Matthew just joined the firm. We can't let this one case affect his future. Besides, this case was always yours. Now that it's about to fail, you should bear all the responsibility. All right, didn't you want to have a wedding with me? After this, I'll compensate you with a wedding. Okay. But I never imagined that this wedding, from beginning to end, had always been prepared by Juliet for Matthew. Seeing that I didn't respond to Matthew, Juliet grew angry. Alexander, Matthew is talking to you. What are you spacing out for? You're really so immature. Don't force me to scold you on such a happy day. I couldn't help but mock myself. Yeah, I'm immature. Sorry. Perhaps she heard the heaviness in my voice, because Juliet's tone softened slightly. Forget it. You being immature isn't something new. Let's leave it at that. We're going to start toasting now. Oh right. Go back and pack up first. Move out temporarily. There's going to be wedding pranks tonight, And if Matthew's parents see you, everything will be exposed. It really was time to move out. After all, that place was no longer my home. Did you hear me, Alexander? I cut her off, my expression calm as I said, Juliet, let's break up. Chapter 2. Juliet froze for a moment, then snapped angrily, Alexander, what are you talking about? We're legally married, what do you mean, break up? I'm just pretending to marry Matthew. The marriage certificate is in your hands. Is it really necessary for you to be so jealous and say something like this to me? Hearing that, I didn't even feel like arguing anymore. I only felt that everything I had given over the years was not worth it. The marriage certificate. She knew better than anyone what our marriage certificate was really about. Maybe because I stayed silent, Juliet thought I had backed down. After a brief pause, she spoke again. All right, I know you're just jealous and trying to provoke me with a breakup, but if you say something like this again next time, I'll really get angry. How about we just consider this a temporary separation? Okay. Oh right. There's a case over in City A that's pretty tricky. Go there first and investigate. Gather some evidence. With that, Juliet hung up the phone, but faintly. I still heard her explaining things to Matthew. I haven't found anyone to take over the case he's handling yet. Once I find someone, I couldn't help but feel miserable for myself. So in her heart, was I nothing more than a money-making tool? I worked myself to the bone on case after case, yet the money I earned was taken by her to live it up with Matthew. I still remembered that a year ago, the little electric scooter I used to commute to work broke down. I asked her to buy me a new one. Instead, she bought me a second-hand bicycle and had me pedaling to work in the dead of winter. The economy isn't good right now, and I don't have any spare money. Just make do for now. My nose was red from the cold wind, and when I finally arrived at the law firm, I saw a brand new Apollo sports car parked at the entrance. Only then did I realize, it wasn't that the economy was bad. It was that Juliet had used the money I earned to buy Matthew a birthday gift, just to make him smile. Thinking of this, I shook my head in self-mockery. I went home first to pack my luggage, then took it with me to the law firm. Teacher Alexander, aren't you and Juliet holding a wedding today? Everyone at the firm had gone to the wedding. Only one female intern was left behind. Coincidentally, she was my intern. Or perhaps it wasn't a coincidence at all. You remembered wrong. That's Juliet and Matthew's wedding, not mine, I said calmly, pulling out a resignation notice as I spoke, because Juliet had always claimed that I was also one of the firm's owners. She never signed a contract with me, so if I wanted to leave, I could just walk away. The reality was that absurd, a law firm full of people who understood the law, yet constantly did illegal things. The female in turn froze, then seemed to understand everything and said indignantly, Juliet has gone way too far. I smiled, told her to focus on her work, then turned and left the place where I had struggled for so many years. After resigning, I didn't feel any lighter. A top lawyer renowned throughout the entire industry, with only 3 yuan and 65 cents to his name, no one would believe it if I said it out loud. I sighed and hesitated before calling a college classmate. When she heard that I had broken up, she was overjoyed. She immediately said she would drive overnight to pick me up and bring me to work at her law firm, even offering me the status of partner along with shares. I told her there was no need to go to such trouble. I only needed to borrow 200 yuan, enough to buy a bus ticket. After all, over the years when I traveled for work to other cities, I had already gotten used to taking long-distance buses to save money. Unexpectedly, my classmate felt sorry for me and immediately transferred 2 million to my card, telling me to buy the most expensive business class flight tomorrow. She even said she would head to the airport right away to wait for me and pick me up. I could only smile bitterly, my mood sinking. So generous, far more generous than Juliet had ever been to me. I stayed at a hotel for the night, watching the wedding prank video Matthew posted on WeChat Moments. Seeing Juliet's joyful smile in it, I silently gave it a like. The next day, I boarded a business class flight right on time. Soon, the plane landed. As I walked out of the airport, I heard Matthew's voice. He exclaimed in surprise, Alexander, aren't you supposed to be in City A working on a case? Why are you following us? So that's why you were kind enough to like our video last night. Turns out you were waiting for us here. Huh. Chapter 3. I turned around and saw Juliet and Matthew, both wearing wedding rings, fingers intertwined, their faces full of sweetness. What a perfect match. Seeing me, Juliet seemed a little helpless. She let go of his hand and walked over, asking, Alexander, didn't we agree to separate for a while? Next, I'm going on a honeymoon with Matthew so we can completely fool his parents. If you keep following me like this, I'll be exhausted. Besides, didn't I give you a case to handle? Matthew looked displeased and accused me. Alexander, I don't even mind that you and Juliet already got a marriage certificate. Can't you be a bit more generous and give Juliet and me some private space? Why are you following us? What? Are you planning to follow us even if Juliet and I go to bed together? Seeing Matthew get angry, Juliet hurried to comfort him. Then she turned around and frowned at me. All right, Alexander. You've seen me now. Hurry back. Okay, Matthew doesn't like you, you know that. Wait, where did you get the money to buy a plane ticket? Did you stash some private savings? You've really got some nerve. I replied calmly. First, I'm not following you. Second, this ticket was given to me by a friend. Juliet became impatient. Still lying. What friends do you even have in J City? Matthew suddenly chimed in from the side. This money, don't tell me you took out a loan for it, Alexander. At that, Juliet reacted as if her tail had been stepped on, snapping angrily. That would be humiliating if word got out. I'll transfer you the money, don't let a loan affect the firm. Now get lost. Looking at the disgusted expression on Juliet's face, I suddenly found it ridiculous. When I discovered that the marriage certificate was fake, I didn't expose her lie. I thought maybe, one day, the fake might turn real. But after Matthew was brought into the firm by her, and she began favoring him more and more, spending her days fooling around with him, I finally understood. Fake would always be fake. Chapter 4. The money has already been transferred to you. Get lost. Do you hear me? I hadn't planned to respond to her, but the more she spoke, the more outrageous she became. Just as I couldn't help but open my mouth, I heard Loviana's voice. Alexander, I waited for you all night. My eyes are swollen from staying up. You're finally here. Who are they? Your ex-girlfriend. Didn't you say you'd already broken up with your ex? I turned around and saw Loviana, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, walking over in a custom haute couture gown. I smiled and walked toward her. Juliet froze for a moment, then suddenly came back to her senses, staring in disbelief. You came here for this woman. Hearing that, a trace of mockery flashed through Matthew's eyes as he spoke in a sarcastic tone. Oh my, don't tell me this is the mistress you've been keeping on the side, Alexander. At those words, Juliet seemed to realize something. She looked at me in disbelief. No wonder you wanted to break up with me before. So you already found someone new. Alexander, I've been in a relationship with you for 12 years and married to you for 10, and now you're with another woman. How can you face me? Matthew was full of smug satisfaction as he continued to belittle me. Alexander, how could you betray the pure love between you and Juliet over such a small matter? You're really too disappointing. Juliet, let's go. Breathing the same air as a scumbag like this makes me feel dirty. I was so angry that I laughed. What a shameless attempt to turn the tables. Not to mention that Loviana and I were completely innocent, even if I really had cheated. What right did they have to come out and accuse me? Juliet didn't leave. Instead, she stormed over and viciously slapped Loviana. You wretched woman who ruins other people's happy families. Didn't you know he has a wife? Seeing this, I rushed forward and shoved her away. Juliet, are you out of your mind? At that, Juliet's eyes turned red. She clenched her fingers and pointed at me. Alexander, you actually scolded me and pushed me away for this woman. Have you forgotten all those vows you once swore to me? Those eternal promises. She actually had the nerve to bring up those vows. I took a deep breath, suppressing my emotions, and said coldly, first, I did not cheat. Second, her name is Loviana. She's my college classmate. I came to H City this time for serious business with her. The money and the plane ticket were both lent to me by her. Juliet let out a cold laugh. A college classmate? You think I'll believe you? Believe it or not, Loviana. Let's go. I turned and took Loviana with me, about to leave, but Juliet angrily blocked my way. Alexander, if you dare to leave right now, I'll fire you from the law firm. You'll never be allowed back. Just as I was about to speak, Loviana seemed unable to hold back any longer. That would be perfect. Then Alexander can officially become a partner at our firm. As she spoke, she took out the partnership agreement she had prepared. Hearing this, Juliet's gaze trembled. In the next second, she grabbed my collar tightly and demanded angrily, is what this woman said true? You're going to her firm as a partner? Alexander, just because of such a small matter, you're switching firms. I don't agree to you switching firms. A trace of mockery flashed through Matthew's eyes, but he sighed on the surface. Alexander, you're a lawyer yourself. How can you knowingly break the law? If you jump ship now, you'll have to pay us a huge sum in compensation. Loviana immediately replied, no matter how much it costs, our firm will pay. I smiled faintly. There's no need. I never signed a labor contract with them in the first place. Juliet, since there was no labor contract, I naturally don't need your approval. On the contrary, if I really wanted to pursue this seriously, then you all. Before I could finish speaking, Juliet cut me off. Her eyes reddened. Her gaze was filled with disappointment. Alexander, I really misjudged you. If you insist on switching firms, then let's get a divorce. Although she said divorce, her tone was unusually calm, as if she was certain that I wouldn't dare divorce her. This was her usual trick ever since she married me. In the past, I naturally wouldn't agree, but now, I couldn't, because to divorce her, we would first have to be married, I shook my head. A look of joy immediately appeared on Juliet's face. But then I took out the 2 fake marriage certificates from my bag. We were never married in the first place, so how could there be any talk of divorce? Chapter 5. Panic flashed across Juliet's face for a split second. Then, as if she had thought of something, her expression darkened. She snatched the marriage certificates from my hand, tore them into pieces, and flung the scraps into my face. Alexander, it looks like you really came fully prepared today, even fake marriage certificates and all. And you still dare say none of this was planned by you? Then tell me, if everything was just a coincidence, why were you carrying around these 2 fake marriage certificates? This isn't our marriage certificate at all. I think you've completely lost your mind. Forging official state seals can get you sentenced to years in prison. You're not ignorant of that, are you? A trace of disappointment flashed through Matthew's eyes before he spoke in a sarcastic, mocking tone. Alexander, as if we don't know what kind of person you are. If I remember correctly, you've had that marriage certificate for 7 years already, right? If it were really fake, would you have waited until today to expose it? Alexander, this little performance of yours today is really going too far. As he spoke, he wrapped an arm around Juliet's waist right in front of me, but Juliet pushed him away. A flicker of astonishment crossed Matthew's eyes, while Juliet snapped angrily, "Well, say something." "What? Are you mute now? Your lie's been exposed, so now you're feeling guilty. Let me tell you, Alexander, my patience with you is limited. If you keep making a scene like this, don't blame me for never bothering with you again." I looked at the impatience in her brows, at the simmering anger in her eyes. For some reason, I found it ridiculous. "Juliet, since you've forgotten, let me help you remember. 7 years ago, I begged you to marry me. I wanted to give you a wedding, but you refused, saying it was unnecessary and a waste of money, that just registering the marriage would be enough. At the time, I was even touched, thinking you were the one I had been waiting for all along. But on the day we were supposed to register the marriage, Matthew called you and lied, saying he'd been hit by a car. You left me alone at the Civil Affairs Bureau to go find him. I waited for you there the entire day. You never came back. I was blown sick by the bleak, cold wind and ended up hospitalized, while you were out living it up with Matthew. Later, when I said I wanted to break up, you took out 2 marriage certificates and said you had prepared them long ago, that you were just joking with me. But I discovered the very next day that those certificates were fake. Do you remember now? Hearing this, Juliet looked as if she had been struck by an earthquake, her face filled with shock and pain. Perhaps she had finally remembered. I paid her no mind and continued calmly. As for why I stayed with you for so long despite knowing the certificates were fake, it's because I was naive back then. I thought that given enough time, something fake might one day become real. But fake is fake, after all. And as for why I kept those 2 fake marriage certificates, it was nothing more than a memento. A reminder of the past few years of my youth that were chewed up and wasted like scraps thrown to a dog. But now that you've torn even that memory apart, there's nothing left between us. At first, my tone may have been a little agitated. I wanted to finally say all the unfairness I had bottled up over the years. But by the end, all that remained was calm and clarity. So this was it. Leaving turned out to be such a simple thing. I glanced at Matthew. His eyes were wide with excitement and undisguised joy. If I were him, I'd probably be happy too. After all, a long-standing rival was finally gone. Enough. Alexander, even now you're still arguing and lying. The marriage certificate we got was obviously real. Back then, you were the one who begged me to marry you. Now you're the one talking about divorce. Why does everything always have to be decided by you? If you want a divorce, let me tell you, impossible. Now come home with me. After venting her anger, Juliet grabbed my collar and, without even sparing Matthew a glance, dragged me toward the airport terminal. Matthew's expression stiffened instantly. Juliet, the Juliet who had always responded to his every word, ignored him for the first time. I looked at her like this, unable to understand. Wasn't she the one who always said that if it weren't for me clinging to her back then, if it weren't because I annoyed her, she wouldn't have stayed with me at all? Now that I had finally let go, why was she unwilling to accept it? I shook off her hand and stood still. Juliet, that place is no longer my home. Everything related to me in that house is already gone. Now, that's your home with Matthew. It's the marital home you share with him. Juliet froze where she stood, pressing her lips together as she looked at me. A look of delight appeared on Matthew's face. He walked over, took Juliet's hand, and said affectionately, "Juliet, since Alexander is finally willing to leave, then from now on, let me take care of you, okay? Let me be your husband, the one who walks through life hand in hand with you." I lowered my gaze. Although I had long made up my mind to leave, hearing those words still made my heart tremble slightly. After all, I had loved her for a full 10 years. How many 10 years does a person have in a lifetime? Juliet kept staring at me. When she saw me lower my eyes, a flicker of joy crossed her face, and she linked her arm through Matthew's. All right then, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow and register our marriage. She said it casually, yet her eyes never left me. I knew she was trying to provoke me. In the past, hearing something like this would have driven me mad. Juliet loved provoking me. Every time we argued, she would turn around and do all kinds of intimate things with Matthew. But now, my heart was as calm as the depths of Lake Baikal, without a ripple. I wish you a happy marriage. After saying that, I grabbed Luviana, who still wanted to keep watching the drama, and turned to leave. Seeing that I wasn't provoked at all, Juliet immediately rushed after me, clinging tightly. Happy marriage? What right do you have to wish us a happy marriage? As my ex-husband, or my ex-boyfriend? When she saw that I still didn't react, Juliet could only sigh and continue. Alexander, I know you're upset because Matthew and I had a wedding. How about this? Come back with me now, and I'll be generous and hold a wedding for you too. So petty. You really don't look like a man at all. Chapter 6. I didn't care, but Luviana couldn't hold back anymore. MS. Juliet. Alexander has already broken up with you. Why do you keep harassing him? You're Alexander. He's clearly my husband. And explain yourself. What do you mean? I'm harassing him. Juliet shoved Luviana hard, her attitude extremely vicious. I quickly steadied Luviana and asked anxiously, Luviana, are you okay? Juliet, are you seriously sick in the head? Luviana was speaking to you properly. Why did you push her? And besides, was she wrong? Hearing this, Juliet stared at me in disbelief. You yelled at me again. You've yelled at me twice today because of another woman. Luviana pressed her lips together and sucked in a sharp breath. I think I twisted my ankle. It really hurts. Alexander, looks like I'll have to trouble you to take me to the hospital. As she spoke, she leaned against me, then turned to Juliet with obvious resentment. Yes, your husband. You're so impressive, having 2 husbands. Ma'am, can you let your husband accompany me to the hospital now? Oh, right, your ex-husband. Heh, if you really treated him as your husband, how could you treat him like this? A top lawyer famous nationwide, with only 3 yuan and 65 cents in his pocket, when he borrowed money, he only dared to ask me for 200 yuan. A man like that, you don't cherish him, but plenty of people will. He's now a partner at my law firm. Next, I'll pursue him and make him my husband, just to piss you off blah blah blah. Hearing this, I was momentarily speechless, not knowing what to say. The reason I thought of borrowing money from Luviana first was because back in college, we were already very close. She often borrowed my study notes. After graduation, she returned to H City to inherit her family's law firm. I met Juliet and went with her to J City, but our relationship never deteriorated because of the distance. Much of the key evidence in my cases had been investigated with Luviana's help. We were more like kindred spirits, so the things she said were probably just to help me anger Juliet. I pulled Luviana back behind me. That's enough. Your ankle's twisted and you still have this much energy. Hey, I'm helping you vent your anger. How can you be so ungrateful? I lifted my foot, about to leave, but Juliet blocked me forcefully. You're not allowed to go. Alexander, I finally see it clearly. You've been fooling around with this pretentious coquette bitch for a long time already, haven't you? Even if you want to break up with me, what about all the cases at our law firm? How can you be so irresponsible, just leaving whenever you want? You can leave if you want, but you must finish all the cases under your name first. A trace of mockery flashed through Matthew's eyes, but he spoke hypocritically. That's right, Alexander. As a lawyer, how can you be so irresponsible? You haven't even finished the cases you're handling, and you're already thinking about jumping to another firm. Even if you didn't sign a contract with Juliet, isn't that still your fault? Juliet is just too kind, she trusted you too much, and that's why you took advantage of her. Hearing this, I frowned and let out a cold laugh. Didn't she already hand all my cases over to you? Oh right, I forgot. After you took them over, you managed to screw them all up. I'm taking Luviana to the hospital now. If you keep pestering me, then don't blame me. After I join Luviana's firm, the first lawsuit I file will be against you. When that happens, Juliet, remember to hire a different lawyer, because if Matthew personally takes the case, he'll definitely lose miserably. With that, I turned around and carried Luviana into a taxi. As the car started, I expressionlessly rolled up the window. Just as there was still a small gap left, Juliet's voice slipped in. Alexander, I'll wait for the day you regret this and kneel down to beg me. Then keep waiting. Chapter 7. I watched as Juliet's figure grew smaller and smaller in my line of sight. Just like the past we once shared, it was as if the world were being reconstructed. TSK, so painful. Luviana, who had been forcing herself to hold on just moments ago, instantly showed a pitiful expression the moment we got into the taxi. With a look of annoyance, I helped her take off her shoes and socks. Her ankle, smooth as jade, pale as snow, was flushed red all around. I began to gently massage it for her. If you hadn't spoken up earlier, we would have left long ago. You wouldn't have had to endure this pain for so long. Luviana didn't know what she was thinking about. Her cheeks flushed pink, but her tone remained stubborn. Wasn't I just trying to stand up for you? TSK, be gentler. I quietly massaged her ankle. She also fell silent. For a moment, the atmosphere grew quiet. After a long while, she spoke softly, her tone casual, as if she didn't really care. Have you really let go? Yeah, I answered without even lifting my head. Hearing that, her voice carried an inexplicable lightness, like the first winter jasmine blooming in early spring. That's good. From now on, just stick with me properly. Soon, I took her to the hospital. After bandaging her ankle, the doctor reminded us to rest properly and, during this period, to refrain from sexual activity. Blushing, I wheeled her out of the hospital and brought her back to her place. Do you have somewhere to stay? If not, just stay at my place. Luviana suddenly spoke while sitting in the wheelchair. I froze for a moment, then shook my head. No, that would be too much trouble. I'll just rent a place myself. Oh right, the 2 million you transferred to me is way too much. I'll keep 3,000 and transfer the rest back to you. I didn't know which sentence upset her. The moment I finished speaking, she smacked my hand hard, tossed out a curt idiot, and wheeled herself into the house. Maybe I really was an idiot. I could tell what Luviana meant, but I had just gone through a breakup, and for now, I didn't have the heart for that. I surveyed the unfamiliar room, and my thoughts drifted back to the first time I went to J-City. Back then, Juliet and I were squeezed into a tiny rental apartment. The air carried a musty smell, and at night, the entire place seemed to radiate a bone-chilling cold. Whenever that happened, Juliet's hands and feet would turn icy as she curled up in my arms. Alexander, it's so good to have you. Be my exclusive human heater for the rest of my life. Okay. I nodded gently, holding her tightly in my arms, swearing that I would succeed, that I would make a name for myself so she would never have to suffer with me again. Later, through hard work and the connections I had accumulated over years of litigation, I opened a law firm with her, one that belonged to the two of us. And then, everything seemed to change. Juliet no longer needed me to warm her hands and feet. With just a word from her, countless men would rush to compete for the chance to be her human heater. She began dumping everything at the firm onto me, while she spent her days fooling around outside. At the time, I only thought she had been repressed for too long and, after gaining money, simply wanted to experience life, so I tacitly allowed her indulgence. But one day, when I went to a hotel to meet a client for a case, I ran straight into Juliet and Matthew coming out together. She explained that Matthew wanted to join our firm, so she had come to the hotel to interview him. I laughed in anger. Interviewing at a hotel, did she take me for an idiot? I slammed a punch into Matthew's face. He didn't hold back either, striking my temple so hard my vision swam and I staggered back several steps. Yet Juliet paid me no attention at all. She only cared about Matthew. That was when my heart truly went cold, and I turned and left. That night, Juliet came to find me, apologized, and promised she would never do it again. I believed her, but the very next day, when I returned to the firm, I found that Matthew had already been hired, and had even taken over my office. Alexander, Matthew is a bit socially anxious. You move out for now and let him use this office. Under the subtle, awkward gazes of all my colleagues, I carried my things to a corner outside and worked there. From then on, Juliet, who used to come to my office only once every 10 days or half a month, began showing up to work on time every single day, and would stay in Matthew's office all day long. Juliet said she was waiting for the day I'd regret everything, but what I really wanted to tell her was, the thing I regret the most in my life is falling in love with her. Chapter 8. The next day, I officially started working at Luviana's law firm. I turned down the partnership contract she offered me at the beginning. I told her that I wanted to become a partner through my own abilities. I, Alexander, have never needed charity. Luviana didn't quite understand, but she respected all of my choices. As punishment for rejecting her, however, she made me eat her experimental dishes every day, food she cooked while learning culinary skills. With only 3,000 yuan left in my pocket, half of which had gone to rent, I nodded fiercely in agreement. Surprisingly, it was really good. Much better than what Juliet used to cook. Well, that made sense. Luviana came from a well-off family. She must have learned these things since she was young. How could it possibly taste bad? Maybe she was just using this as an excuse to help support me. In the days that followed, I kept taking on cases, ranging from trivial neighborhood disputes to major commercial lawsuits. The reputation of Luviana's firm grew louder and louder, quickly rising to prominence throughout the legal world. Countless former clients of mine came seeking me out after hearing that I had switched firms. After I won a lawsuit to recover unpaid wages for migrant workers, pulling off a desperate turnaround that sent not only the presiding judge but also the defendant straight to prison, I completely went viral online. Countless netizens jokingly called me an outlaw. One lawsuit in, and even the onlookers ended up behind bars. At the celebratory dinner that night, Luviana once again took out that partnership contract, smiling as she asked me to sign it. This time, I didn't hesitate. I signed my name. And so, Alexander of J City died. Alexander of H City was reborn. After the feast, I stood on the hotel balcony, holding half a glass of wine, letting the bleak night wind wash over me. A thin layer of fog seemed to gather on the lenses framed by my gold-rimmed glasses, blurring the depth of the night. I gently swirled the bottle, watching the ripples of wine rise and fall, just like my past life. Alexander, come look at something interesting. As I was lost in thought, Luviana appeared barefoot behind me, cheeks flushed, wearing an oversized white shirt and denim shorts, standing there sweetly. The wind so strong outside, why did you come out dressed like this? And what do you mean by something interesting? Don't mess with me. I hesitated and glanced at her figure, then quickly looked away. Luviana pulled out her phone with a mischievous grin. Look at what your ex-girlfriend posted on her Moments. Only then did I realize my thoughts had gone astray. I pouted slightly and took the phone from her. I scrolled through the screen for a long time but couldn't find anything. Where is it? I don't see it. When I looked up, I saw Luviana leaning against the wall, already drunk and fast asleep. I sighed, took off my jacket, and draped it over her shoulders, with the alcohol hitting me as well. I simply sat down beside her and continued scrolling through her Moments. I knew Luviana had added Juliet on WeChat that day. The two of them had cursed each other out all night, right in front of me. The insults were vicious. Nothing like Juliet, and nothing like Luviana either. So given Luviana's hostility toward Juliet, when she said there was something interesting, I couldn't help but feel curious. I kept scrolling down, and finally saw a video posted by someone named Alexander's stupid ex-girlfriend. Yeah, that nickname was very much Luviana's style. My finger paused for a moment before I tapped on the video. In it, Juliet was wearing a bright red wedding dress, holding two vividly red marriage certificates, leaning against Matthew's chest with a radiant smile. We're married. To love someone is to become their partner in the eyes of the law, and to love them for a lifetime in the eyes of the heart. Chapter 9. What, in the end, is love? Is it the night wind blowing straight into the heart? Or the kind of companionship that never grows tiresome over time? I didn't quite understand anymore. I only felt that the night wind was heavy, and a little cold. I shifted slightly, pulling most of the jacket that had been draped over Luviana onto myself. Who told her to make me watch that video anyway? Unexpectedly, Luviana suddenly opened her eyes, deep in her pupils. It was as if the stars in the night sky were reflected, bright and dazzling. The moment our gazes met, I instinctively looked away. But this time, Luviana reached out and grasped my chin, forcefully turning my face back. What are you doing? Does it hurt? I mean, does your heart hurt? Hearing that, I lowered my head and listened to my own heart. Only after a long while did I answer. It seems, it doesn't hurt that much. More like a summer night rainstorm, violent and sudden. I think what I feel more than anything is resentment. Luviana lowered her eyes, the corner of her lips lifting slightly. She leaned forward, the jacket slipping from her shoulders, and whispered softly by my ear. Then this resentful gentleman, would you be willing to share a love as long and bitter as winter with a resentful lady? My pupils trembled violently. Miss Resentment. She. Under the heavy, ink-dark night sky, Luviana slowly told me a story about Miss Resentment and Mr. Resentment. That story also stirred up a memory of my own. It was one scorching summer. After finishing the college entrance exam, I boarded a train heading toward my future. Back then, in my youth, I always believed that with the blazing sun overhead, the whole world was mine to go to. But reality was this. The moment I got on the train, the tuition money that the entire village, young and old alike, had scraped together for me, was lost. I searched from the last car to the first, sweating profusely with panic. The railway police helped me look as well. Announcement after announcement was made, but even as my stop approached, the money was nowhere to be found. That feeling was like finally crawling out of the mud, only to be kicked straight back in. After leaving the platform, I squatted by a flower bed, eyes empty and unfocused. A girl with twin ponytails appeared before me. The scorching sunlight made me squint, unable to see her face clearly. I only felt that she looked like a big star straight out of television. Hey, is this the money you dropped? My hands trembled as I reached toward the thick stack of bills. I wanted so badly to say that it was mine, but I knew it was too clean. So clean that even from a distance, I could almost smell the faint scent of money on it. I lowered my head and pulled my hand back, just about to speak, when the girl suddenly tossed the money onto me and ran off. I stared blankly as I looked up, seeing only hair flying and a white dress swaying away. Thinking of this, I seized Luviana's hands and pressed her firmly against the wall, my voice hoarse and low. So, that girl back then was you? Luviana twisted uncomfortably, snapping back irritably. If it wasn't me, who else could it be? You heartless bastard. I gave you all my tuition money, I got scolded to death by my parents when I went home. And who knew you'd forget me the moment you got to college, and get tangled up with that damned ex-wife of yours instead. By the end, her voice grew softer and softer. I was the one who came first. I let out a bitter laugh and slid down to sit on the ground. Then what if I told you that I mistook Juliet for you, and that's why I was so blindly devoted to her? Hearing this, Loviana lifted her eyes in a daze, confusion filling them. I sighed and explained simply, she owns a white dress, exactly the same as the one you wore that day. Loviana instantly understood. Anger flashed across her face. Damn it, I'm never wearing white dresses again. I'm so mad. No, you should still wear them. I like them. Loviana looked up in surprise, and met my slightly cold lips. Chapter 10. Loviana and I fell deeply in love, inseparable, clinging to each other all day long. Yet out of nowhere, Juliet called me. Alexander, did you see the video I posted on my Moments? It's too late for you to regret it now. I've already married Matthew, and this time, the marriage certificate is real. Loviana said nothing, only teasingly brushed a hand over me. I immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Juliet, I wish you and Matthew a happy marriage. All right, I still have things to do, so I'll hang up now. After ending the call, I couldn't wait to pounce on Loviana. Explain yourself, what did you mean by touching me just now? To see whether you're capable or not. Fine, I'll show you just how capable I am. After the passion faded, I lay on the bed and picked up my phone, planning to check the progress of my recent cases. Only then did I notice that Juliet had called me many times and sent a pile of long messages. She wrote about how difficult things were at the law firm now, how hard her life had become, how heartless I was. She said she hadn't actually registered the marriage with Matthew, the certificate was fake too. She'd only done it to anger me. After I left, she reflected deeply and felt she owed me a great deal. She wanted me to give her another chance, to let her make it up to me. At the very end, she even sent a photo of herself wearing a white dress. After a moment of silence, I called her. She picked up quickly, her voice trembling. Alexander, you finally called me back. Let's get back together. Okay, this time I really know I was wrong. I'll never fool around outside again. Come back to me. Let's go register our marriage right away. Okay. I glanced at Loviana beside me, pretending to be asleep, and smiled calmly. No, Juliet, I've already found the real girl in the white dress. With that, I hung up. Juliet called again, but I didn't answer. All that remained was the ringtone echoing in the room. I heard you finally walked into a wedding. That day, your expression was especially beautiful. The pure white hem of your dress, tears in your eyes. You're getting married, but the person you're marrying isn't me.